Well, I think I've exhausted most of my ideas for this stamp that I had. First, I want to say, if you're new here, welcome. I'm Autumn, and if you like things stamp carving, printmaking, mixed media, art journaling, bookmaking, watercolor, you might want to do this. So in my previous video, I talked about whether this particular stamp or block print leads itself to using it as a stamp or block print style. And I think it goes either way. It can do a lot of different things, but I had such a great time exploring this stamp and doing different things with it, and I just still love it. I think there's a lot more that I can do. And you heard me talk about it in my last video where I share my Leafy block print, and I questioned, is it a print? Is it a block print? Or is it a stamp? And I make the comparison in that video, and I'll leave a link for that below. For now, as promised, I'm going to share with you all the different versions of this block print that I created, and I used it in a lot of different techniques. And I also designed a collection of fabrics that will be uploaded to my Spoonflower very soon. But if you stay till the end of the video, you'll get to see my collection that I designed. This was actually the collection of fabrics that I designed for my class, Paint to Pattern, that I took with Sarah Watts. It was very intense. It was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. So I'm gonna share with you my design. So when I made this stamp, I made three block prints, and they were all the same size, and I talk about it in the other video because I have a certain size that I wanted to use for my 4x6 index cards. I talk about that as well, but this particular one I was really interested in, but I played with it a little bit before I took away the exterior. So before I removed any of the exterior, I took several prints of this because I just liked the way it looked, but I knew I wasn't going to keep it this way. And then I put it in a frame. It's just a reminder that there's so many options for these kind of prints. One of the constant things within reach at all times for me are 4x6 index cards. They're blank. I buy them in bulk, and I will leave a link for those below as well. They are the most convenient thing for me to work with. I absolutely love them. I use them all the time. Like I said, I have a stack of them within reach, and I use them for sketching out ideas, sampling colors, paints, concepts, just working out paint colors, just different design ideas, notes to myself for different things, thumbnails, more designs, more color. It's become an imperative in my studio space, and I use them daily in multiple ways. And it's really funny because I'd been doing this for years, and I became a Sketchbox subscriber a couple of years ago, I think before the pandemic. And it's just the basic membership, and they consistently send me little watercolor pads that are 4x6, or block print paper that's 4x6, or marker paper that's 4x6. Now, I am not sponsored by Sketchbox at all. This is just my information that I'm sharing with you with my experience with them. So it became very clear that the 4x6 size, which I think is an A6 size, I'm not sure, I think it is, was what works for me. And for instance, when Sketchbox sends me a paper that I really like, I will check it out, and if I find out, I'll research them and find out that they're vegan. I'll just stamp a little vegan stamp on there so that I know that if I'm sharing it with you, that it is a product that I can get behind, because there's no animals involved in the production of this product. So they have several of them, and where's the other one I had? I don't know. It was around here somewhere. Oh, here it is. So I just use them all the time, and I use them for watercolor, and exploration, printing, just a way to keep myself more controlled. I think if this was all paper, and these were stacks of paper on my desk, I think I'd lose my mind. It's just much easier to handle and control and thumb through and look through when they're in this size, this great 4x6 size. So that's my little spiel on 4x6 index cards. You're gonna see, I'm gonna go through a big stack of these prints, and you're also gonna see that I even have some on toned paper that, yes, Sketchbox has sent, and it's just fun to play with. So let's get back to the block print or the stamp, because when I carved out these 3 designs, I knew I wanted them to fit on a 4x6 block of Speedy Carve, because then I knew I could easily stamp them on my index cards. They would fit just perfectly, almost just barely, but that's okay, because if I were to do these for more of a fine art framing purpose, I would do it on a bigger piece of fine paper, not index cards or small watercolor paper, because it's a little too tight. But just for my exploration purposes, this is perfect. So when I went to carve these, I knew that the design had to fit perfectly on a 4x6 Speedy Carve. This is my favorite material. I love carving with it. The only issue is it is thin, and I do a video on mounting this material on acrylic mounts, which gives you a nice handle, and that really works in your process with using these as stamps. So I sketched out several, and I was just keeping it really, really loose. I didn't really want to give it too much worry or thought. This was my original sketch, and I just went with it, and I thought, I'm just gonna carve it out. And this stamp really spoke to me, and I have been having such a blast with it. So I'm gonna go through and share many, not just some, but many of my processes with playing with this stamp. For instance, I used it in a watercolor technique here. I stamped it with dye-based inks in a watercolory fashion. You've seen me do this before, but I am gonna show you in this video how I do that. And I just would stamp different ways, stamping it off, getting ink off of the stamp so that I can re-ink it again, or testing it out, finding out where I need to add pressure, painting around it, painting on top of it, coloring around it. This, I used some ink from Ferris Wheel Press. This is Grape Ice Pop by Ferris Wheel Press. And I literally loaded the ink in this Yasutomo pen. It's like a water brush. And I would just load the stamp this way. And then I misted it lightly with water. I'll just show you really fast. I'm not gonna do the whole thing. Normally I would hold this away from my desk so that I don't get water all over my desk. So that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm just gonna do this block print style. So you can see how this developed into a real interesting style technique to use with this relief cut. And I had so much fun. With this color, I just went crazy. So much fun. Here I did it on the toned paper. Here I sprayed some water on it after I stamped it, stamping it off, playing with it different ways, other inks, papers. This paper is a cotton watercolor paper. I think it's not really ideal for watercolor, I don't think. I think it's very textured and fluffy. I think, is paper fluffy? I don't know. I think this is more for letterpress, but I still play with it and use it anyway. Some more watercolor paper. This is the Distress Oxide inks that I used, and this is gonna be what I'm gonna use when I show you how to do this. But different colorways, different ways to explore. This is the same ink, but I stamped it on marker paper and it gave it a beautiful buff matte sheen that I just love. Here I used 3 different colors, misted it with water, stamped it, made my print, misted it with water again because there was still a lot of ink on the block print, stamped it again, made another print with watercolor paper, and then again there was still more ink left on the relief cut, so I misted it with water again and then made the impression with more watercolor paper. So as you can see, it can really just be sort of an endless process, but I love it. And so I got out bigger sheets of paper and I started playing with watercolors and water-based inks. It just really went crazy, trying different ideas, colors, resulting in different textures, different values. I really like the lighter colored ones, and I love this interaction with the water and the ink and how it just makes them all look different. Here again, more watercolor, and then I just filled in the background with another one of my water brushes. This one was a felt tip one that had some more Ferris wheel press ink, and I had mixed a couple of colors. It's just so relaxing to sit down and just fill this in and play with color and movement. I like it. Tons of fun for me. This is another big process that I did with more of the Distress Oxide inks and water. And I really just love some of the earthy muddiness that came through and how they're all so different. And I'm trying to figure out a way to work this into surface pattern design. And as you know, from my last video, I was talking about taking Sarah Watts' class, Paint to Pattern, and it's a very intense Photoshop class. I feel like I'm in college again. It's been pretty intense, that's all I gotta say. But I'm learning a lot, and I'm also realizing there's a lot that I don't know, and one of them is making decisions on which things to use and which things to not. So a lot of surface pattern design ideas, and I will share some of those with you at the end of this video. This is the other stamp, the other block print, but I had used gouache on watercolor paper. Here I was trying lightweight marker paper. I was trying some printmakers paper, different textures, different weights, different finishes. It all creates a completely different print. I ended up with so many of these and so many piles. So I had these in sketchbooks. I did little spot illustrations with them. I used them in this little handmade journal, which I did a video on. And I'm gonna add more to it. This was just a piece that I had sitting around that I cut out, and I thought, I'm just gonna use it. So I'm gonna add more of it into this one. This concertina book, you might have seen me do in another video. Here they are, there's some upside down. This was on my art table paper, so this was made into a book, and there's parts of it that are upside down. But as I work through this book, I'm gonna reorient this so that I'll probably cut out some of these and collage them on here so that it gives it more of the orientation that the ground is this way. But I just love this stamp. I just really love playing with it. And I'm gonna show you more. So like I said, in sketchbooks, I had so many of them, and I had piles and stacks of them that I just couldn't keep track of them. So I found this YouTuber, and I'm gonna leave her information below. And she was talking about making these customized tab, do-it-yourself page tabs, and inside are these paper clips. It's a really fun process. I enjoyed it. But the thing that I really liked about it is that I was able to put these on different pages of my sketchbooks so that when I was going through them, I could say, oh yes, on these pages in here, I know that this Leafy block print is in there and I want to scan it and share it with you. So this was a really fun process. I'm gonna leave her link below. These page tabs, I just found them so useful and so interesting. And I would have made a lot more, but I only had a few paper clips. I think I need to order some paper clips and make many more of these. They really helped. I enjoyed making them and they're so useful. And I stamped the image really close to itself. I compacted it in so that I could see it clearer. And I also like that look. But I know that this is the stamp that I used, and I know that this is what is holding these guys together. And if you want to learn how to make them, do. They're a lot of fun and they're very convenient to use. Okay, so again, more watercolor. Here I painted the background with gouache. Trying different inks. This didn't work out so well. It's okay. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's all just paper. It's just exploration and fun. But I was really obsessed with these greens. This one, you know, with all the rich colors and playing with different papers, markers, stamping them off and trying them with sort of a shadowy print effect, trying to make repeats out of them. This process, I don't know if you know how to do that. It didn't work because the block print is too big for the folds. If you know, you know. Playing with them with my gel plate, which is vegan, thank you. Different ideas, different processes. Again, more watercolor with the gouache painted background. More watercolor. My idea was stamp several of these, have them all different, and then put them into one big surface pattern design. But once I started working on these in Photoshop, I just felt a little overwhelmed, a little too much cleanup in between all of this paint and the negative space, and it got to be a little overwhelming. So I decided to hold off on that and maybe just use a few that I could incorporate into a nice, good pattern. Here I have it stamped with watercolor, and then I watercolored the background. I think this turned out really pretty. Here is some more of my Ferris wheel press ink that I did. I'm obsessed with this purple. It's so beautiful. And you can see the different values from the concentrated area where the ink is to the really light area. Just adds a lot of interest. And then just coloring in the background. Just so much fun. Let's see, what else do I have back here? Oh, more. See, that's why these little tabs are important. Painting it with watercolor, and then again, gouache in the background. Stamping this just with a single ink. I think I used, I don't know what I used. And then I just did the gouache background. I really like that real textured background feel. And more green watercolor. So there you have it. I have a lot of ideas, and honestly, I could just sit down and play and do these all day, every day, and get nothing else done because it was just so satisfying, so much fun. So now I'm gonna show you how I did these. I'm gonna try to do a quick demonstration and you'll get the idea, and hopefully you might wanna try it yourself. So now I wanna share with you how I made this particular design, this watercolory look. And I used inks. I used some Distress Oxide inks. And here I'm using two different colors. I'm using a blue and a yellow. And I'm using this dauber that I got online. I think if you're a stamper, you've seen these before, but I use these to apply the ink to my stamp. So as I put the ink on the stamp, I don't really think about how even the ink is. I don't think about if it's too thin in some places or too thick in some places, or if it pools up, because I am actually looking for a watercolor feel. I am using a watercolor technique with the inks to make these impressions, to make these prints. So it definitely does give me a lot of options, and I don't have to worry about too many of the details. Because when the water interacts with the ink, it becomes quite a magical experience, and it just gives a whole different life to a print which is completely different than using simply ink. So these are my designs that I worked on, that I presented in class as a collection. I do want to do more with this leafy block print. I think there's all sorts of ideas. I want to do something more mural-like for wallpaper, and lots of colorways and lots of different orientations that I want to use to work with this stamp or this print and see what I can come up with. But these are my designs, and I was really happy with them. They turned out vibrant and rich, and I think they do tell a little bit of a story. And they will be for sale in my Spoonflower Shop. I'm still refining some of the designs, and the link will be below. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. I have much more to share with you.